everybody, welcome back to the next part of my dialing in series for our Line 6 Helix. Today I'm talking about another specific effect that so many of us have enjoyed using over the years, and that is the chorus effect. So I wanted to do a dialing in video, not so much stating that, there's only one setting that's going to work, or this is the way the chorus should be set, because that would be silly. Everybody's going to have different tastes and needs for their chorus. But what I wanted to do rather is talk about what a chorus effect actually is, what it's doing, and what the controls do, so that we can all have an easier time kind of adjusting it to the point that's going to satisfy what our end goal is, if that makes sense, okay? So let's dive over to HX Edit right away and take a look at what we have. What I set up here is a very simple preset based off of my template. I've turned the delay off. I've added a chorus in here. It's a stereo chorus, but we'll talk about that in a second. And I've just done a jazz chorus amp model, just a nice clean sound. Nothing, I didn't really spend any time working on this. So let's look at a chorus effect. Here we have our stereo chorus. Now let's talk about the difference between the stereo and the mono version. On stereo we have speed, depth, pre-delay, wave shape, tone, spread, mix, and level. On the mono version, what you'll notice is, so there we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 settings. If we go to the mono version, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 settings. So what did we lose? Well, we lost the spread control, which is going to be unique to the stereo version, which we'll talk about in a moment, okay? So what we have here is speed, depth, pre-delay, wave shape, tone, spread, mix, and level. If we don't understand what these things are doing, then we're going to have a very hard time dialing in anything efficiently to get to sort of an end goal that we have in mind. So the better we understand how this works, the simpler that it is going to be to just dial it in a manner that we are going to like and enjoy. Okay, so let's talk first about what a chorus actually is. As you notice, chorus falls under our modulation effects, as do things like trim, phaser, flanger, etc. And we have different types of choruses as well. We're just going to be focusing on this one in particular today. Why are they called modulation effects? Well, these type of effects have what they call an LFO, a low frequency oscillator, which modulates some parameter. Modulate just means to change it in some way. But it does it sort of consistently based off of a set of parameters, okay? So, in the case of a chorus, what we have is a low frequency modulator changing a delay time. But now you go, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, what actually happens with a chorus is we have our normal signal. We then split that signal into another version of itself, okay? Now that in and of itself won't do anything because we're just playing back two identical things. Now what we do with the second signal is we delay it by X number of milliseconds. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then we constantly vary the number of milliseconds of delay that we add to that second line, and then we mix it back in with the original signal, if that makes sense. So we have two signals, the original direct signal, then we have the modulated signal, which is going to have so many milliseconds of delay constantly moving based off of another set of parameters. We mix that back in, and that gives us this chorus effect. We get little pitch variations and timing variations between the two lines. And that's essentially how we create a chorus effect. Now, I could actually illustrate that. If I turn this off, what you'll hear here is just a simple non-chorused clean tone. If I come before it, and this is going to be a very simple explanation as to what a chorus does. If I pick a simple delay, let's go with a mono simple delay, we're going to turn the mix up to 100, the feedback down to 0, and I'm going to come here in the milliseconds and put in like maybe, I don't know, 15 milliseconds, let's say, or yeah, let's even go 20 milliseconds. All right, now I'm going to come over to my bypass controller assign switch here, and I'm going to, actually, I can do it from here. I can right click this and assign this to expression pedal 2. So I'm going to be able to control that parameter with my expression pedal. I'm going to come over here now, and I'm going to click what I just created there on my simple delay time parameter, and I'm going to set the low minimum time to about 20 milliseconds And let's set this to, I don't know, 35 milliseconds. So what that's going to do, if I come back to my simple delay and I go to my expression pedal, you will see that I can now control with my expression pedal, I can modulate the delay time, okay? Now, what I've done is I'm going to pull this down to another path, bring my block over here. I'm going to set this to be split AB. Now what's happening is I have my original signal flowing through my amp, but I'm splitting it off. I'm modulating a delay time and then mixing it back in with the original. So this is going to be kind of a weird, simple makeshift delay. Let's hear what this sound, or makeshift chorus. This is hear what this sounds like. Again, if I turn this off, clean, no chorus, I turn this on. If I stop moving it, as soon as I start modulating it, we get that chorus effect. It's playing funny things with pitch as that delay changes time and then mixes back in. So if we think about back to our controls here on our actual chorus, the speed would be how quickly that is being modulated, to put it simply, right? So if I came in here and modulated this as fast as I could, or, right? It's hard to do here, but that's going to kind of be how quick that modulation is affecting the signal. The depth of it, I guess if I was to try to mimic that here, it would be to say, okay, I want it really deep, so what I'll do is I'll spread these out more and go from, let's say, 15 milliseconds to, that jumped up on me, 50 milliseconds, let's say. So there's a much wider depth to it. Not necessarily what you want, but that kind of tells us what the depth control does. So the speed is how fast that modulation is going to change the delay time. The depth is how wide that delay parameters are going to be to give us real depth to the sound, okay? So I'll get rid of that. That's what I wanted to show you as far as illustrating what a chorus effect actually does. Now it gets much more complex than that because we have other parameters inside of our chorus pedal or chorus block that we can mess around with. But let's just take a look at the speed and the depth. At this standard setting right here, this is the sound we get. And you'll notice if I get the speed way up, that modulation is much faster now. Maybe it's useful for some sort of an effect. If I crank the depth up, you're going to hear again, it's going to be even a more intense version of that. Okay, if I bring the speed way down, we hear a much more subtle effect. Even though the depth is way up, we have a wider depth, but so if you want something very lush without the massive sort of detuning effects that you get with this faster speed, we can bring that speed down. Those are going to be the controls that are going to be the biggest factor in what we're trying to get out of this. So I oftentimes like this kind of an effect setting with a very slow speed or rate, but a higher depth. And it usually just gives a nice shimmer to the sound without giving too many of those detuning artifacts, right? You can also bring the depth back. But then maybe you'd want to bring the speed up to get a slightly different effect, right? So like I said, there is no right answer here. It's just simply what we're going to need for a particular situation or a personal preference. Now, pre-delay, what is pre-delay? Pre-delay, as in reverb, right? In reverb, if we hit a note, the reverb won't start until a certain predetermined amount of time, usually set in milliseconds. I don't know what the setting is here, but it's the same sort of thing that, remember how I said there's your direct signal, and then we have a second signal that we split off that we're going to have this modulated delay. Well, all the pre-delay is going to do is determine how long before that actually starts doing its thing, if that makes sense. So if I set this to be fairly heavy chorus, let's move the pre-delay down. If you hear the chorus effect is instant almost. Here you get a little bit more of the unaffected signal first and then the chorus comes in. So that again, really personal preference. You could have it somewhere in there. And that's usually just to give separation between the direct unaffected signal so it stands out a little bit more. So, you know, back to a nice setting like I had here. You should kind of get a little bit more of that direct signal popping out at the beginning before the chorus comes in. Which they're kind of more blended together. A very subtle effect, but let's leave that up a little bit higher, okay? The wave shape is interesting because the modulation is going to move possibly in different shapes, okay? So we've got saw up, saw down, triangle, sine, square, inverse sine, and random. So random is just going to be whatever the effect block chooses from all the other choices, so that's fine. But a saw will look more like this, where it modulates up fast and drops off quickly. And then what happens is this line kind of looks like saw teeth, right? So we have saw up and then we have saw down, where, you know, it would spike up and come down. I believe I got those in the right way. Anyways, we're gonna have to use our ear anyways to just understand that. Triangle is just gonna be more like quick up, quick down. Sine is gonna be smoother, right? Just like a sine wave, right? Square, boom, boom, this type of a thing, right? Very, very hard up, straight across, hard down. And then inverse sine is just going to be the sine wave just flipped around the other way. So you might say, well, what do these sound like? Well, let's get a chorus that actually doesn't sound great, but that'll illustrate what we're doing here. So let's go to saw up. The random's kind of neat, but we just never really know what we're going to get. So we can see how powerful this is, right? And let's even just go to something really extreme here. Okay, and we kind of get the idea. Let's go back to something more subtle like I had before. For that kind of a setting, I like the triangle or the sine maybe, you know, gives nice. Okay. Tone is going to be just that. It's going to be a tone control. If we want kind of a fat, deep chorus, we'll take that tone down. If we want kind of a thinner, treblier chorus, we'll take that up. So if I take the tone down, you'll hear it. Just thins out the chorus effect. I kind of usually leave that in around 5. Unless I was mixing and I found it just needed a little more warmth, I could bring that back, you know. Okay, now the spread is going to be the stereo effect of this. So this is a stereo chorus. If I go down to 0, we really lose the stereo-ness of this. It's almost basically collapsing it to mono. I don't know if it's actually totally collapsing it to mono. Sure sounds close to it though. You'll really hear that on headphones. So if we wanted something not so wide and lush, we go halfway in between. Now, a word about stereo versus mono. If I take this stereo chorus, and you know, a lot of people ask, where should I put my chorus, before the amp or after? Well, if I drag this before the amp with the full stereo spread, I'm going to lose my stereo effect. The stereo effect is going to have much less effect now. And the reason for that is we're sending a stereo signal into a mono amp, right? That's going to collapse it to mono. So we really wouldn't have any purpose to put the stereo version before. We would probably put a mono version before it, which doesn't have the spread control anyways, right? The mono version is going to work exactly the same way as this, just that you're not going to have the spread control, right? Because it's going to be mono. But so if you want the stereo chorus, you're going to have to move this after the amp like this. Turn your spread control up to wherever you want it. Now another word is, if you have this effect on a stereo patch and you want to make it more mono compatible, just pull your spread control back. Somewhat monoized the stereo without having to change blocks to a mono block. That's why I use a lot of stereo effects, even if I'm not utilizing the stereo side of them, let's say, right? With delays, I'll pull it so that the delays are just mostly up the middle anyway, so that they're going to be compatible with either stereo or mono setups, right? And then the user can decide that if they want to add more stereo qualities to it, they can just bring their spread control up and it works really nicely. So we'll bring that back up. Mix control is going to be just like a mix control on any other. It's going to be how much of the direct signal and the affected signal get mixed together. If we go to 0, we have no effect. If we go to 100, we have the modulated only without direct signal. So you'll notice with a heavy pre-delay here, this is interesting, heavy pre-delay, when I strum, it's an instant before the actual tone comes in. There's a little latency to it. You might not even be able to hear it. I feel it. If I bring that pre-delay down, the latency kind of goes away. If I bring that back up, there's a latency again. But that is the chorus sound without any of the direct signal. This is the direct signal without any of the modulated signal. So we can bring that to 50% to mix them perfectly in balance. Now, so another way we can do this, let's say that chorus, you like it, but it's just a little too much. We don't necessarily have to go to our depth control. We can take our mix back here, pull that back maybe to 30%. You know, even if we had this set to my settings I liked before. So a lot of people hear the word chorus and they kind of go, "Ooh, I don't like chorus. I don't like chorus." You know, we think of maybe back to the 1980s where it was every hair metal band was lacing their sound with this kind of cheesy chorus, but it doesn't have to be that. And if we understand what the controls do and how it works, you know, just what's actually happening under the hood of a chorus effect, I think it takes the intimidation away from it on one level, but it also helps us to maybe realize we could do some really major cool special effects with it, right? Grabbing this, you know. Would never think of that as a chorus, but now that we understand that that's possible with it, you know, there's a lot of opportunity here to use it for special effects even, right? Look at the difference changing the wave shape there does. Pretty crazy stuff, right? And again, we can go all the way from something like that to, you know, something like that with just a few twists of the knobs once we understand what's happening. I'm not going to put anything up on Custom Tone here because it's really nothing to put up, but it's just more an understanding of how this chorus effect works. So I hope that answers some questions. There's a lot of folks, you probably already understood all of this, already knew it, but I do get a lot of questions concerning these effects and a lot of people who are just kind of scratching their head going, how do I dial this in properly? So I thought a video like that would be very helpful on one of the more popular effects that a lot of folks like to use, which is the chorus effect. So I really hope that helped some of you guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I really try to get to them if I can. I can't always get to all of them. There's a fairly large number coming in now, but I will do my best. I'm not ignoring you. I hope nobody feels that way. But yeah, please like the video and share it if you don't mind for anybody you think might get some use out of it. Subscribe to the channel and hit the little bell notification so you get to see when I put new videos out and you can watch those. It helps support me and keep my channel going and allows me to do these videos for you guys. So thank you guys so much again for tuning in. I really appreciate your time and I will be back soon with some more content. Thanks again, guys. Ciao for now.